Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving into something quite profound. It's the path to what Rick Hanson calls awakening in his book, Neurodharma, New Science, Ancient Wisdom.
And for you listening, our goal here is pretty straightforward. We want you to get the heart of these big ideas fast, pinpoint those key insights, and maybe have a few of those aha moments, but without getting bogged down in complex stuff.
Exactly. Consider this your shortcut to understanding some really deep concepts.
And the book itself, Neurodharma, it's this really interesting mix, isn't it? It pulls together ancient Buddhist wisdom, the latest neuroscience, and just practical psychology.
Yeah, and it's got endorsements from people like Jack Kornfield, Judson Brewer, some heavy hitters. So we know the ground we're covering is, well, pretty solid.
Definitely. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack the main ideas from the book. We're going to focus particularly on steadying the mind and warming the heart.
And the key is finding those actionable things, right? Stuff you can actually use day to day.
That's the plan. Insights you can start applying almost immediately.
Okay, let's jump right in. Hanson kicks things off with this really evocative image. The brain as an enchanted loom. What's he getting at there?
It's a beautiful metaphor, really. It highlights that everything you experience, literally everything, depends on what your brain is doing. This incredibly complex network, 85 billion neurons?
Something like that, yeah. And trillions of connections between them.
Exactly. Neurons firing, releasing chemicals across those tiny gaps, the synapses.
That's where all the action is.
And this constant activity, as the scientist Sherrington first put it, is like an enchanted loom weaving the tapestry of your conscious experience moment by moment.
Wow.
But here's a really important point Hanson makes. Even though the mind depends on the brain, it's not just a passive side effect. The mind itself has, its own causal power.
Okay, the mind influencing things on its own. How does that work, practically speaking?
Well, think about remembering something. Say, you recall a conversation from yesterday. The specific neurons firing today to bring back that memory. They're probably different from the ones that were firing when the conversation actually happened.
Right. The brain state changes.
Precisely. The mental experience itself, the memory, is driving neural activity in a new way. It's your mind actively shaping your brain. It's not just a one-way street from brain to mind.
That flips the usual perspective a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting with this dynamic brain, neurodharma then shifts to suffering, something we can all unfortunately relate to.
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's major trauma or just that background hum of dissatisfaction, unhappiness is part of being human. And that leads right into a core Buddhist teaching, the Four Noble Truths. The very first one is just acknowledging that suffering exists. It's real.
Hanson mentions a practice from Gil Fronsdal that sounds so simple. I stop for suffering.
It does sound simple, but it's powerful. It's about that crucial first step. Just noticing it, seeing it in yourself, seeing it in others, instead of immediately trying to push it away or ignore it.
Facing it.
Yeah. And to really get what suffering is, we need to define mind here. Hanson uses Eric Kandl's definition. Kandl won a Nobel Prize, by the way.
Yeah.
He defines mind as basically all the experiences and information that are represented by your nervous system, your inner world, essentially.
So our thoughts, feelings, sensations, it's all information flowing through the brain. Okay, so if that's the setup, how do we actually change it? Can we really rewire this enchanted loom?
Well, the great news from science is
Yes.
yes, absolutely. Things like mindfulness and meditation, they demonstrably change the brain.
And pretty quickly, too, sometimes.
Amazingly quickly. Research shows that even 3 days of mindfulness training can boost activity in the prefrontal cortex. That's your brain's CEO, basically.
The control center.
Right. And it decreases activity in a spot called the posterior cingulate cortex, the PCC.
The PCC. Remind me, why is quieting that down important?
The PCC is a big part of the default mode network. That's the network that hums along when your mind is wandering, lost in thought about yourself, the past, the future, that mental chatter.
Oh, I know it well.
So more prefrontal control over the PCC means less of that autopilot mind wandering, less getting stuck in your own head, and more ability to focus on right now.
That sounds incredibly useful. Fewer mental rabbit holes.
Exactly. Fewer rabbit holes, more presence. That's a big deal for everyday life.
And what happens if you stick with it longer, like weeks or months?
Good question. With more sustained practice, like the standard 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction or MBSR course, we see people getting better at regulating their amygdala. The amygdala is like the brain's alarm system, always scanning for danger.
So less reactivity.
Less reactivity, yeah. Fewer knee-jerk stress reactions. And what's more, these practices can actually increase the volume of the hippocampus
Which is involved in learning and memory.
and calming down the amygdala. So it helps put the brakes on that stress response. Often this goes along with lower levels of cortisol, the main stress hormone. You become more resilient.
So meditating isn't just about feeling good in the moment, it's literally changing your stress hardware.
Fundamentally. And for people who've meditated consistently for years, the changes are even more pronounced.
Like what?
Thicker brain tissue in really key areas. The prefrontal cortex, again, better executive functions, planning, deciding. The insula, that's crucial for self-awareness, tuning into your body, empathy.
Wow.
Also, the anterior cingulate cortex helps with attention, staying on track with goals. And even the corpus callosum, the big bundle of fibers connecting the brain's two halves. Better integration.
It's fascinating that it's not just one type of meditation either.
No, research across different practices, transcendental meditation, prayer, compassion, and kindness meditations shows similar kinds of changes in regions related to attention, emotion regulation, body awareness, sense of self.
The common thread is
Yeah,
where you put your attention.
that's exactly it. Hansen really drives this home. Your brain takes its shape from what you consistently rest your attention on. So if you repeatedly focus on feeling steady or feeling loving, you're literally weaving those qualities into your nervous system. You're building them in.
Okay, that's a powerful idea. This leads us nicely into the 7 steps or themes of awakening that Hansen outlines. It sounds like a whole journey.
It is. He lays out these 7 themes: steadiness of mind, warmth of heart, then fullness, wholeness, nowness, allness, and timelessness.
That's quite a list. Sounds maybe a bit daunting.
Well, what's really encouraging is how he frames it. He stresses that this isn't just for, hardcore practitioners dedicating years on retreat. Even 10 minutes a day, focused intentionally, can start to make a difference.
But it's still a path, right?
So-
Not a magic button.
Definitely not. It's gradual, it takes effort, consistency. And he talks about 2 main ways to approach it. One is sort of step by step, reducing the negative, growing the positive. The other is about recognizing the awakened nature that's maybe already here, just obscured.
And these 2 approaches work together.
He argues they support each other beautifully, like working from both ends.
Okay, let's dig into the first one. Steadying the mind. He uses a great metaphor for this.
The turbulent river, yeah. The idea is you need a steady mind, some inner stability if you actually want to help anyone else effectively. If you're being swept away by your own internal currents, you can't really offer a hand, can you?
No, absolutely. I remember my early meditation attempts felt exactly like that, just being tossed around. That question Hansen quotes from Christina Feldman about concentration, that really hit home for me. Can you actually concentrate?
It highlights the absolute foundation, being able to direct your attention and keep it there. This is where Hansen brings in the idea of jhanas.
Which can sound a bit mystical.
Right, but he describes them in very grounded psychological terms, states of increasing concentration, clarity, joy, happiness, balance, mindfulness, basically progressively deeper levels of focused attention.
Okay. And to help us actually do this, he gives us the HEAL framework. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. HEAL is a simple acronym. Have a beneficial experience. Then enrich it. Really feel it. Absorb it, let it sink in. And finally, link it, especially linking positive feelings to older, maybe negative patterns.
Got it. HEAL.
And for steadying the mind specifically, he suggests practices like feeling grounded. This isn't just about watching your mind, it's actively cultivating that feeling of presence and stability.
So what are the nuts and bolts? How do we train attention?
Several key things. Using the breath is classic. It's always there, a stable anchor. Then there's the active part. Applying your attention to the breath and sustaining it there.
And noticing when it wanders off.
Exactly. That's metacognition, being aware of your awareness. Paying attention to attention itself and gently bringing it back when it drifts. Just having the intention, okay, pay attention, stay with it. That's surprisingly powerful.
He also mentions using the breath itself to calm down.
Yeah, simply making your exhalation a little longer than your inhalation. That naturally activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's relaxation response. It physically calms the mind.
Simple but effective.
Very. Then he offers practices like abiding wholehearted, focusing on feelings of care and feeling safer, which is about letting go of needless anxiety and cultivating a sense of security.
That link between feeling safe and being steady seems crucial, especially with our brain's negativity bias.
Totally. We're wired to overestimate threats, which keeps us on edge, makes it hard to settle. So consciously tuning into the safety that is actually present right now helps calm that whole system down, allows the mind to steady.
It's not about pretending threats don't exist, but recognizing the safety that's also here.
Precisely. And over time, with practice, you start to just feel steadier inside. He also encourages just noticing what pulls your attention away, thoughts, sounds, whatever, and figuring out ways to manage those distractions.
Okay, that covers steadying the mind. Let's shift to the second big area, warming the heart. This is the compassion and kindness piece.
Exactly. And again, it involves both formal practice, like specific meditations,
Yeah.
and informal stuff, just making it a habit to wish others well silently as you go about your day.
And the principle's the same as with steadying the mind, resting your attention on the positive.
Yes, by repeatedly resting your mind upon warm-hearted feelings, really savoring them, feeling them, you gradually weave lovingness into your nervous system. You're installing it, so to speak.
It's interesting. He frames this nudging the mind for good purposes as not just okay, but actually essential.
He really emphasizes that. This intentional cultivation is key for resilience, for good relationships, for spiritual growth. It's not passive. He introduces a classic Theravada Buddhist practice.
The loving kindness one?
Yeah, where you offer specific warm wishes. May you be safe, be healthy, be happy, live with ease to different people.
Starting with someone easy.
Right. A benefactor, then a friend, then someone neutral, then yourself, which is crucial, and finally someone you find challenging.
That last one. Extending kindness to difficult people.
Yeah.
That sounds really hard, but potentially really transformative.
It can be. He suggests starting small, maybe someone who is just mildly difficult. He also offers a meditation called grounded and loving, combining that stable, grounded feeling with cultivating warmth in the heart area.
And warming the heart isn't only about generating good feelings, it's also about not causing harm.
Absolutely critical. He connects this to the ethical guidelines in Buddhism: wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood. But he stresses applying that same moral compass inward, not harming yourself.
How do we harm ourselves?
He has this reflection, how we hurt ourselves, asking if we're, in his words, killing anything alive within us, maybe stifling creativity, joy, integrity.
Oof, that's powerful, which leads right into self-compassion. I think this is often misunderstood.
Hugely. People think it's selfish or like self-pity,
Yeah.
but it's really just turning that same kindness you'd offer a suffering friend towards yourself when you're having a hard time.
And the research backs it up.
Consistently. More self-compassion means less harsh self-criticism, more resilience, higher self-worth, more willingness to try things and risk failure. It actually makes you less self-absorbed because you're not so caught up in beating yourself up.
So when you're stuck in that negative loop, what's the move?
He suggests gently disengaging from the intensity for a moment, maybe focus on your breath or a pleasant memory. Then come back to the difficult feeling, but hold it with kindness, with understanding. He offers a specific practice for this, involving feeling cared for by others, and then extending that care to your own burdens.
He also uses that two wolves parable, love and hate.
Yeah, the classic story. We have both potentials within us, and the one we feed through our attention grows stronger. He acknowledges anger isn't always bad. It can signal injustice.
But it can be addictive and destructive.
Exactly. Rewarding in the brain short-term, maybe, but often damaging to relationships and well-being long-term. We need to understand our anger and others' anger, not just try to stamp it out or let it run wild.
And the final piece of warming the heart is expanding that circle.
Right. The all of us idea, actively widening who you include in your sense of us, not just your inner circle, but neutral people, even difficult people. Recognizing the shared humanity.
Oh, by finding common ground.
Yeah, things like me, this person feels pain. Like me, they want to be happy. It's about broadening your heart without necessarily giving up your own views or values. He suggests simple things like starting the day with an intention to be helpful and just resting in the awareness of the kindness that's already present in you and others.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful, but Neurodharma also tackles the deeper stuff, right? The old wounds, the baggage we carry.
Yes, and this is so important. He talks about how early experiences, especially trauma, get stored in implicit memory. It's often nonverbal, held in the body remembers, as trauma expert Babette Rothschild put it. It can get reactivated by triggers we're not even aware of.
And mindfulness alone might not be enough for that.
He cautions against thinking that, sometimes called spiritual bypass, hoping meditation will just magically fix deep-seated issues. Often, he says, you need more focused work, maybe therapy, specific techniques to address that buried material directly.
And this is where the L in Heal Link comes in again.
Precisely. This is about intentionally linking positive experiences to that negative material, using moments of calm, strength, or feeling cared for to soothe and gradually repattern those old hurts. He talks about the window of reconsolidation.
What's that?
It's a brief period after an old memory or feeling gets activated when the neural pathways associated with it become flexible, changeable. If you bring in a positive experience during that window, you can start to update the old memory.
So you link calm strength to anxiety, maybe, or
Yeah.
gratitude to sadness.
Exactly. Keep the positive feelings central, let the negative be there but kind of small off to the side. Imagine the good feelings sinking into the hurt place. Or maybe visualizing your wise adult self comforting a younger part of you.
Gently, though,
Yeah.
especially with trauma.
Absolutely. Go slowly, be gentle, and get professional help if you're dealing with intense stuff. It's not about forcing anything.
Hansen also takes a closer look at the nature of suffering itself. That phrase, life is suffering. He refines it.
He does. He points out that suffering, as we experience it, is a specific kind of unpleasant mental state. It requires a nervous system. A rock doesn't suffer. A plant doesn't suffer in the same way. Even individual neurons don't suffer.
So it's a specific kind of experience, not everything.
Right. And crucially, he argues that most things, most moments, most conditioned phenomena are not suffering. Human life contains suffering, yes, but it also contains joy, peace, connection, wisdom, awareness itself.
It's easy to overlook the non-suffering parts when we're focused on the pain.
That's his point. If we overgeneralize and say everything is suffering, we actually misunderstand suffering itself, and we miss the resources, the good stuff that's also present, which can help us deal with the hard stuff. He cautions against exaggerating suffering.
He even questions if purely positive experiences, like love, always have some suffering mixed in.
He does. He encourages a really broad perspective in our practice of don't leave anything out. Consider gender, class, history, all aspects of life. Leave nothing out of your practice.
Okay, finally, let's touch on embodied craving. This sounds like it gets right to the biological roots of desire.
It really does. Hansen connects craving back to fundamental biologically based needs for safety, satisfaction, connection. These are drive states wired deep into our nervous system, shared with other animals, evolved over millennia. He mentions 4 hedonic tones: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral.
And relational, what's that?
That subtle feeling tone that signals our deep need for connection, for belonging. It's often overlooked.
And when these needs feel unmet, that's when the stress response fires up.
Exactly. The amygdala, hypothalamus, sympathetic nervous system, stress hormones. The whole cascade kicks in if the brain perceives a deficit in safety, satisfaction, or connection, leading to feelings like fear, frustration, loneliness, wanting.
But there's an alternative state he describes.
Yes, the opposite of that craving state is a felt sense of fullness and balance, a sense that your core needs are sufficiently met right now. This leads naturally to peace, contentment, love. Difficult feelings might still arise, sure, but they don't have to take over. They don't have to invade the mind and remain.
And getting to that state involves those 2 key steps again.
The heal steps, essentially. Having beneficial experiences, moments of feeling safe, satisfied, connected, and then really internalizing them, enriching and absorbing them. Neurons that fire together, wire together.
So developing positive traits leads to more positive states, which reinforces the traits, an upward spiral.
That's the idea. And he offers the feeling already full practice to help with this. His analogy is great. Petting the lizard, feeding the mouse, and hugging the monkey.
Meaning?
Addressing the needs of our different brain layers, the ancient reptilian brainstem, safety, the mammalian subcortex, satisfaction, avoiding harms, and the primate human neocortex, connection, love. By consciously taking in experiences that meet these core needs, we lessen the grip of craving.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground. This deep dive into Neurodharma has been really insightful. Let's try and quickly recap the main takeaways.
Okay, I think the big ones are: our brains can change. That's neuroplasticity. We can intentionally shape them through practice, especially by focusing on beneficial experiences. Cultivating both steadiness of mind and warmth of heart are key paths.
And understanding suffering, right? Seeing it clearly, knowing it's part of life, but not the whole story, helps us work with it better.
Definitely. And recognizing that craving often comes from unmet fundamental needs, and that cultivating an inner sense of fullness, of already having enough, can really reduce its power.
We really hope that you, listening, will mull over these ideas, maybe explore some of the practices in your own life.
Yeah, maybe just consider this. How could understanding that your brain can change and seeing suffering maybe a bit differently, how could that shift how you approach challenges? Could it open up more well-being, more presence, more compassion for yourself and others?
It's a powerful question. And if you want to go deeper, we absolutely recommend Rick Hanson's book, Neurodharma, New Science, Ancient Wisdom. It's packed with much more detail and guidance.
It really is a fantastic resource.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.